Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 28th of April of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the massive attack that was carried out by the Ukrainians during the previous night between the 28th and 29th of April of 2026. The sources reported that the Ukrainians used at least 250 drones to attack the territory of Russia, and these are the routes of Ukrainian drones that were launched in the direction of the central part of Russia. According to this report, the Ukrainians launched their drones from the southern parts of Kharkiv region. The Ukrainian drones crossed the border with the Russian Federation, then they entered Rostov region, then they entered Volgograd region, and then they moved through the territory of the state of Kazakhstan, and they entered the central part of Russia. And from these, using these roads to attack, the Ukrainians dealt damage to objects of energy infrastructure in the area of the city of Perm. So a lot of videos were published during the previous night, during the previous 24 hours. Most likely the Russians were trying to bring down and to destroy the Ukrainian drones along the border with the state of Kazakhstan. We have lots of videos from this area. At least an oil base was destroyed. Furthermore, the local sources stated that lots of explosions were heard, which means that most likely indeed the Russians had a layer of air defense in this region, but it seems that the Ukrainians had so many drones that they managed to break through this layer defense, this air defense layer, and to attack the city of Perm. And the reason of this is that the Russians have probably several layers of air defense somewhere here. And of course, if the Ukrainian drones were moving through this territory, obviously the Russians would destroy almost everything. So that is why, according to information we have, the Ukrainians decided to attack the city of Perm through the territory of Kazakhstan, where the Russians didn't have air defense, which means that the Ukrainians, by the time they entered the Russian Federation from the south, managed to save as many as possible drones, as many as possible, probably even more than 100 of drones. And then the Ukrainians continue moving further in the northern direction. Of course, the Russians were destroying drones, but obviously the air defense that the Russians had in this region wasn't enough to bring down every single drone that entered this territory. During the day, we received lots of updates about the city of Perm, and by the evening, the area of explosion and the area of attack and a big fire was geolocated. The Ukrainians attacked this object of energy infrastructure. So this is the video from this area. Locals recorded the situation on this object of energy infrastructure, and we see a very big fire in this area. Also, during the day, we received the video with satellite changes before and after attack. So during the first seconds of this video, we can see the situation before. Here we can see the situation after, and according to this video, we see that at least 2 oil tanks were destroyed. This oil tank was destroyed, and this oil tank was destroyed. Furthermore, probably, and according to this fire and according to this situation, we believe that more oil tanks would be damaged or even destroyed. So we have lots of videos from the city of Perm. In this video, we can see this fire from another angle, a very big fire, as you can see. Furthermore, we start receiving updates that the situation in Perm is the same situation as we used to see in the city of Tuapse. An oil rain and overcast sky have been reported in Perm after an attack on Transneft. Local residents have shared this information on social media. So this is the consequences. This is the consequences of an oil rain in this area. And I would like to remind you that the same attack, something similar, happened several days in the area of the city of Tuapse. The Ukrainians attacked the Tuapse oil refinery, and we saw oil rain there as well. But as for the city of Perm, the situation here would be much more difficult in comparison with the situation in the city of Perm. And the thing is that currently the Russians moved a lot of specialists, lots of units of special services in the direction of Tuapse with the purpose to stabilize the situation. There is a very big fire in this area, and probably every single region of Russia sent their people in this region to stabilize the situation. The sources reported that during the 28th of April, the Russians stabilized the situation in the city of Tuapse, but there are still lots of problems. There is a fire still, probably, or at least there is a black smoke over the settlement, which means that currently, and there are very high chances, and probably the Russians are not able to use the same people, same crews, same teams of special services to redeploy them back in the direction of the settlement of Perm with the purpose to stabilize the situation, which means that the next hours, maybe even the next days, the local sources, probably neighboring regions, will help the city of Perm to stabilize the situation. But obviously, this won't be enough to stabilize everything within hours or maybe even minutes, so they won't be able to do this, which means that most likely every single tank through this object of energy infrastructure would be destroyed. So, which means that before May's holidays, the Russians will carry out a massive attack through the territory of Ukraine, and as we discussed during the previous videos, the next Russian attack most likely will be tasked not to damage the cities of Ukraine, not to destroy objects of energy infrastructure. No, we are talking about this diplomatic rule like mirroring. We believe that the Russians will try to mirror the damage that the Ukrainians dealt, which means that the Russians will try to create the situation similar to the situation in Tuapse and Perm, and we are talking about ecological disaster. So let's wait and see, of course, what is going to happen next, but probably something bad might happen. Now let's discuss the situation with the Russian massive attack. The sources stated that the Russians used 171 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine, and during the day we received lots of updates on this matter. The Russians attacked the city of Nikolaev, and we had this video where the sources reported that the Russians damaged or even destroyed an object of energy infrastructure on the territory of the city in its southern part. The Russians attacked several times the city of Odessa, and the sources reported that the Russians also had a vessel to the east of the settlement, to the east of the port infrastructure. By the way, today pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources also stated that at least 2 Russian vessels, commercial vessels, were attacked by Navy drones of the armed forces of Ukraine. They were damaged, and the vessel was drifting 210 kilometers southeast of Tuapse. Furthermore, the sources stated that the Ukrainians attacked the Crimea, its southern part, and in this video, according to the author of this video, the Ukrainians were attacking the base of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, where the Russians kept Iskander missiles or Iskander systems. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Dnipro. In this video we can see how a Ukrainian soldier was destroying or trying to bring down a Russian drone over the city of Dnipro with manpads. So this is a very important video confirming that the Ukrainians using soldiers, using air defense forces from inside of the cities, not like from outside the cities, but from inside the cities, which means that every single attack like this can lead to casualties also among civilians. The Russians also attacked several days ago an oil base in the area of the city of Dnipro, and today we received the video of how exactly the Russians were attacking this object of energy infrastructure using drones. But once again, this is not the attack that took place during the previous night. This attack took place several days ago when the Russians used 666 drones and missiles to attack the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Sumy direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important updates. According to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and the Group of Forces North, the Russians during the previous 24 hours established complete control over the settlement by the name of Novodmytrivka, which is located to the southeast of the city of Sumy. The Russians continue offensive operation in this area, and most likely in coming days the Russians will intensify their attempts to establish complete control over the settlement of Ryasne. If Russians can take the settlement of Ryasne under complete control, then this will allow the Russians to maintain the lines, and then using a broad front line attack, the Russians will continue offensive operation further deep inside of the Sumy region with the purpose to outflank the settlements of Khmelyovka and Krasnopolye from the northeast and from the southeast. Let's talk about the Kharkiv direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received just small changes from the northeastern parts of the region. The Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Zemlyanki, according to the Minister of Defense and according to different sources. These are the changes on the ground between the dates, and these changes are very important because these changes show that the Russians established control over the southern parts of the village, not from the north by attacking from the north and the southern direction, but from the eastern direction in the western direction. So which means that the Russians began another offensive operation, this time from the area of borderlands between the settlements of Tishanka in the western direction, which means that the Russians will continue offensive operation on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha without need to cross the river from the north to the south. Let's talk about the city of Kupiansk. During the previous day, additional changes on the ground were recorded. This is the end of the 28th of April. This is the end of the 29th of April. The pro-Ukrainian sources published a video of how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in the area of the settlement of Kovsharovka. During this video, there was one episode of how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the Russians during the day improved their positions and forced Ukrainians to fall back from this area. So these are the changes on the ground. As you can see, we removed basically a contested area in this region and improved the Russian positions. Now let's talk about the Kostiantynivka direction, because during the previous 24 hours, probably the most important updates we received exactly from this area. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control. More precisely, the group of forces south managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Novodmytrivka, which is the eastern flank of the city of Kostiantynivka. So the settlement was taken by Russians, and based on this report we have adjusted the map, as you can see, and now we see that currently the biggest number of changes and the highest pace of offensive operation from the Russian side is exactly in the Kostiantynivka direction. And for example, these are the changes on the ground between the previous days. So the Russian offensive operation in this area started around 24th of April of 2026, and this is the situation by the end of the 24th of April. And during the previous basically 5 days, the Russians improved their positions significantly, both through the western and the eastern flanks of the city of Kostiantynivka. During this period of time, the Russians announced they captured the settlement of Ilinovka, and today they reported they captured the settlement of Novodmytrivka. And once again, these are the changes on the ground, and this is the end of the 29th of April. And the settlement of Novodmytrivka is a very important settlement, not just because of this is the settlement that was protecting and defending the eastern flank of the city of Kostiantynivka. The settlement of Dmitrievka is something like gates towards the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine between the cities of Chasiv Yar and Kostiantynivka. So we're talking about these territories, and these territories are the most fortified area probably through the entire through the entire Donbass. There are lots of fortifications. Basically, this is one big fortified area between Chasiv Yar and Kostiantynivka, and the Russians managed to outflank this main defense layer. So, which means that from these positions, the Russians most likely will increase their pressure on the eastern flank of the city of Kostiantynivka, and from these positions, the Russians will continue or will try to attack the Ukrainians to the west of Chasiv Yar from behind. So, which means that in coming days, the contingent of the armored force to Ukraine that is currently located in this area could be caught by the Russians in pincers, or could be encircled by Russians if the Russians intensify or improve their positions to the north of this pocket on the Russian side of railways in the area of the villages of Popasna and Verolyubovka. And the most important thing is if the eastern flank, this pocket, collapses from the Ukrainian side, then this can lead to complete collapse of the entire Konstantinovka defenses. In this video, we can see how the Russians were bombing and attacking the city of Konstantinovka with aviation. Another temporary deployment point of the armored force of Ukraine was destroyed. And the Russians, as we can see, continue improving their positions through the western flank of the city. It seems that a turning point in the battle for Konstantinovka occurred, and most likely by the end of June, we won't recognize the map in this region, because we'll see significant changes. Another important thing, if Ukrainians lose the city of Konstantinovka, the Russians will be able to maintain the lines between the cities of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Shakhovo, and the Konstantinovka direction, and the battle for the Drushkovka begins. And probably by the same time, we should expect the Russians finish the battle for the cities of Liman and probably for the pockets to the east of Slaviansk. We are talking about the area between villages of Alexandrovka, Krivoluk, and the settlement of Nikolaevka. So the Russian offensive operation in the Donbas region is intensifying. As for the Dobropillia direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything special. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, we haven't received anything special, just small changes to the north of Gulay Polya. So these are the changes, and several explosions and strikes that were recorded and provided by pro-Russian sources. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing positions of the armored forces of Ukraine between the villages of Vozdvizhovka and Verkhnya Tersa. But from the other side, during the day, we received several updates published by pro-Ukrainian sources that currently the Ukrainians are trying to counterattack in the western Zaporizhzhia direction around the villages of Stepnogorsk and Kamenska. So which means that maybe in coming days, we'll receive additional changes on the ground exactly from this area. Now let's discuss another important update. According to media, the King of the United Kingdom, King Charles III, came to Washington today, and he had a meeting with the President of the United States of America. He said that the alliance that two our nations have built over the centuries, and for which we are profoundly grateful to the American people, is truly unique. According to information we have, the King of England was asking the President of the United States of America. He called for Ukraine's protection from Russia in speech to the US Congress. Furthermore, it seems that it's not just requested to protect Ukraine, it's something like a request to act more aggressively from the side of the United States of America against the Russian side. And furthermore, it seems that this is something like a part of the deal between the United States of America and the United Kingdom regarding the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and on the territory of Ukraine. And it's something like a win-win deal, and it seems that an allies between the United Kingdom and the United States of America currently wants to both establish complete control over the Strait of Hormuz to unblock this area. This is the first target in the favor of the United States of America, and the second thing, together to support and to protect Ukraine from the Russian offensives and from this conflict. Which means that something bad obviously will happen due to these negotiations and due to this possible deal. and most likely the President of the United States of America have accepted this proposal, because right after the meeting, the President of States made lots of very important statements. He said that Donald Trump has instructed his aides to prepare for a prolonged blockade of Iran, according to sources. Furthermore, he stated that the United Kingdom is the closer friend to the United States of America, which means that this is a signal that a deal most likely was made. And the most important thing is that oil prices are moving further, are moving higher. The sources today, according to information we have, oil prices reached the mark of $105 for WTI per barrel, which means that if prices will continue rising, because the United States of America are going to continue the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And the experts are saying that the Iranians currently have from 18 to 22 days, because if with this blockade, the Iranians are not able to sell their oil, this means that in 22 days, they will fill their tanks, they will fill their storages, and after that moment, they would be forced to start production oil, which means that it will be very difficult then to restart everything from the beginning. And meanwhile, the US forces managed to arrest or to stop another commercial ship suspected of attempting to transit to Iran in violation of the US blockade of Iranian ports. So this is the situation, and that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds us we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.